Almost.
Well, councillors, let's start our meeting. Welcome, councillors, executive staff, and other members of the gallery and the press to our ordinary meeting for the 19th of May 2021. And also extend that welcome to anybody who happens to be watching online. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Kamilaroi people as the traditional custodians of the land which we gather today. And I'd also like to pay my respect to elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people who may be present today. Now, councillors and executive team and the gallery, please stand for prayer. Eternal God, our loving Father, we come to thee this day in the name of Jesus Christ, who is the lover of our souls and the saviour of all mankind. May we feel his love and respond to it. May his spirit shine in the lives that are darkened by worry, doubt or fear. Strengthen and guide those who are trying to do the right thing. Make it plain to them. Make us more mindful of the needs of our fellow man and less absorbed in selfish concerns, that Christ may approve and bless what we do here this day. We ask these blessings in his name. Amen. Thank you. The third item on our agenda is bereavements, and for the 22nd of April to the 19th of May, we mourn the loss of Glenda, Jess Buckland, John Wayne Lidgerwood, David John Woolmore, Richard James Irvine, Gary Andrew Lumby, Edison Llewellyn Apthorpe, James Kyneston McCulloch, Lynn Louise, Mark Andrew, Jane Lorraine Ross, Joseph William Kennedy, and Robert Lindsay West. Councillors, executive members, and those in the gallery, please stand with me to honour those who have passed and extend our condolences to families and friends of the deceased. Please be seated. Item 5 on our agenda is the confirmation of minutes. Could I please have a councillor move that the minutes be a correct and accurate record? Councillor Moses, seconded by Councillor Swain. Before I put the motion, does anybody have any comment for the previous minutes? And I put the motion, all those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 6, declaration of interest. We have one declaration of interest so far. Councillor Swain, item 12.2, reallocation of funds, Gunnersdale Memorial Pool. It's less than significant, non-pecuniary, and the reason that their granddaughter is a lifeguard at the pool. And staff member, Jeremy Bartlett, 12.6, Gunnersdale Local Traffic Advisory Committee. Less than significant non-pecuniary. The reason is the Vice President of the Tamworth Cycle Club, organiser of the Tamworth Cycle Race. There'll be no further declarations. Thank you for that. I would like to apologise to councillors and staff. We missed out on item 4, present, and apologies. Apologies to you, Ms. Markey. We'll have to go back one step. And there's an approved leave of absence from Councillor Jamie Chaffey and Councillor John Campbell. All other staff are present. Can I have a councillor please move that those apologies be received? And Councillor O'Keefe, and the seconder please, Councillor Swain. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Is carried. Community presentations, we have nil today, and there is no mayoral minute. So we move on to item 9, General Manager Report, and I'll hand over to our General Manager, Mr. Groth, to outline his recommendations of 9.1, GoCo Clinical Governance Committee.
Good evening, thank you, Mr. Chair, and 3 good evening, councillors and gallery. The first item is to do with GoCo Clinical Governance Committee, and I'd like to hand over to Mr. Bruce Mercer, the Executive Manager of GoCo, to outline his recommendations and field any questions councillors may have.
Thank you, and through Chair. As you can see, the report before you recommends that Council appoint Mrs. Jenny Meyer as Clinical Specialist and Mrs. Leah Marnie as Clinical Governance Specialist to the Section 355 GoCo Clinical Governance Committee. Councillors would remember that at the December ordinary meeting, resolution was passed to authorise the General Manager to call for expressions of interest from appropriately qualified persons to sit as external members on the Clinical Governance Committee. That process was completed in April with the 2 names put forward in the recommendations, those that we would be keen to see appointed to that committee. Both applicants were very strong and were assessed as meeting the such criteria to a very high level.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Do I have Councillor Luke and seconded by Councillor Swain. Councillor Luke, do you wish to make comment?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for the elevation. Anybody like to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Swain, as the seconder of the motion, do you wish to say anything?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Mr. Chairman. I guess this is the way that many professional organisations are going in this day and age, where we have to have the clinical governance different when organisations started off and they just started to gradually evolve. But so it's good to know that we're stepping out into the 21st century. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swain. I'd just like to add that I think you've done an absolutely excellent job of being able to attract to, as they read, very, very highly qualified and professional people, and I think it augurs very, very well for this organisation. So on behalf of Council, thank you very much for your hard work and actually getting these 2 wonderful ladies to actually join the team. Having said that, shall I put the motion? All those in favour? Against? I call the motion carried. Returning now to item 9.2, donation of prizes, Kelvin Hall Committee, and I hand back to Mr. Groth to outline his recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one is seeking your endorsement, councillors, of my actions in providing 2 family passes for the Civic Theatre for the Kelvin Hall Committee for prizes.
I move it, please. Councillor Fuller has moved the motion. A seconder, please. Councillor Moses. Is there any discussion before I put the motion? All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Moving right along to item 9.3, Project Progress Report. I hand back to Mr. Groth to outline the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to present the progress report for the March quarter, and pleased to have any questions directed to the appropriate officer. A
mover of the motion, please. Thank you, Councillor Swain, and seconded by Councillor Luke. Councillor Swain.
No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty self-evident, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Do I have a councillor who would like to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Luke, do you wish to respond to as a seconder?
No, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Therefore, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Right.
Against? Call the motion carried. Moving right along to item 9.4, March Quarterly Budget Review as at the 31st of March 2021. I hand back to Mr Groff once again.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Happy to present the review as outlined by the Deputy Mayor, and pleased again to have any questions addressed to the appropriate officer.
Do I have a mover of the motion, please? It's moved by Councillor Moses and seconded by Councillor Luke. Councillor Moses, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a councillor who wishes to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Luke is the seconder of the motion.
No, thank you, Mr Chair.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
Right.
Against? I call the motion carried. Item 9.5, investments. And I once again return to Councillor Groff to outline the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Chair, for the elevation. I'm pleased to provide the investments report totaling $63.9 million for the month as completed by our capable finance staff. Please take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Groff. And we have a councillor who would move the motion, please. Councillor Fuller, and seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only to congratulate Council on the work that's been achieved, and I think it's a great effort. So thank you, Mr. Groff and Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Do I have a councillor who wishes to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Moses, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. I think that concludes Mr Groff's comments for this section, and I'll hand over now to the Director of Corporate and Community Services, Mr Foreman, to outline the recommendations of item 10.1, Arts and Cultural Grants Assessment Panel.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This first report seeks Council's endorsement of the allocation of $10,397.83 under the Arts and Cultural Grant Fund.
I have a councillor. Thank you, Councillor Hasler, and a seconder for the motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, my motion is the recommendation plus the following words, and that the balance of $7,196 be carried over to add to the pool funding for 2022.
And I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
So we have it, as I read that, there is two parts of the motion now. Part one reads that Council endorse the allocation of $10,397.83 under the 2020-21 Arts and Cultural Fund grant as detailed in the report, and point two, and that the balance of $7,496 be carried over to the pool fund for 2021-22. Is that how you read that, Councillor Hasler?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So Councillor Hasler has moved that addition to the motion and it has been supported by Councillor Luke. Do I have anybody who wishes to speak against the motion or ask a question?
Well, I'd like to speak in favour of the motion to move it first.
You certainly may.
I do so because that recommendation, that in fact motion was in fact the recommendation of the committee when we discussed it when we were determining the successful applicants. And unfortunately this year there were not that as many applicants as we would have normally expected, and one in particular unfortunately was not able to gain a full allocation because they hadn't completed the process appropriately, and I think that will be addressed next year. I think the general view of the committee was, or the working group, was that the arts and cultural grants are only a small amount of our budgetary allocations each year compared to other expenditures of the organisation, and that the funds should remain targeted for arts and culture for next year and beyond. So that is why the recommendation is made, and I urge the council to support it. As I say, the recommendation came from that working group.
Thank you, Councillor Hasler. Now, is there anybody who'd like to ask a further question or speak against the motion? Councillor Luke, as the secretary of the motion, do you wish to add to that?
No, I think Councillor Hasler explained the feeling of that working group and very succinctly. So I'm pretty happy with the resolution and recommend it to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? I call the motion carried. Item 10.2, outstanding resolution register. I hand back to Mr. Foreman to outline his recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The outstanding resolution register is presented for the information of councillors, with the recommendation being that the information be received and noted.
Do I have a mover? Councillor Hasler, are you moving the motion or do you wish to question?
Well, I move it so that I get the opportunity to ask that question.
Absolutely. Thank you. And a seconder of the motion, please, Councillor Moses. I'll hand over to you, Councillor Hasler.
Just two questions. One relates on page 64 to the town hall, item 15-04-2020. The town hall quote, when are we likely to receive that figure to know what we are looking at in terms of future expenditure to repair the town hall? And the second one relates to items 17-06-2020, page 71. When is it likely that the pool report will be completed and available for council?
Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Councillor Hasler, for the question, and through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. In relation to the Gunnedah Town Hall Structural Engineers report, I need to take that question on notice. In relation to the pool report, councillors, staff will be able to provide that report to council once we have more information from our in terms of legal advice.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Does anybody wish to ask a further question or speak against the motion before I put the motion? Councillor Moses, do you, as a seconder of the motion, wish to reply?
No, thank you, Mr Chair.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 11.1. I believe, Mr Foreman, that concludes your report. And we move on now to item 11.1, Director of Planning and Environmental Services report. I hand over to Mr Johns to outline the recommendation of 11.1, planning proposal to amend the Gunnedah Local Environmental Plan 2012, planning proposal lot 15, 16, 17 and 19, section etc. Chandos Street, Gunnedah.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Through you, councillors, you will recall late last year made a resolution to amend the Gunnedah LEP to allow additional permitted use on the subject property, which is down in Chandos Street. The CMCA had a camping ground approved there. It's one of those funny anomalies of New South Wales planning system whereby you have a camping ground but not a caravan on the same site. So essentially this proposal is to amend their LEP to permit caravans on that particular site. We have exhibited the proposal in accordance with the gateway determination that was determined by the state government. There were a few submissions made that have been addressed within the report, and I guess the final step now is to make the changes to the LEP.
Mr Chairman, sorry to interrupt, but I realise I have now joined the CMCA, so that I should actually not participate in this discussion because now I am a member of the CMCA. So if we could actually put in that, declare that, if I can declare that interest and leave the room.
You certainly may. Ms. Parker, you are on to the resolution.
Mr Chairman, I'm happy to move that resolution.
Second.
So Councillor Luke has left chambers and the motion has been moved by Councillor Hasler. Do we have a second of the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Hasler.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I urge my fellow councillors to support this, especially in light of the recent letter that we all received from Mr. Jeff Wood, who pointed out the fact that in what I consider to be a fairly outrageous move, the regional ranger, the ILS, has put up signs indicating that it is not allowable to free park on the area on the northern side of the river, which has been, from all observation, a very popular area for people and it was developed by the Gulliver Land Care Group for that purpose and has been maintaining them and maintained in good order by the people who have utilised it over a period of time. And to have a government official take the action on the basis that supposedly mobs of cattle that might stand feeding towards the river and injure the potential campers there is absolutely nonsense. We haven't had a mob of cattle there for decades, and we probably should be, if they're doing the right thing, putting fences up so that the cattle aren't going down the river and destroying the bank.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, point of order, are we talking about a caravan park or are we talking about camping across the river?
Thank you very much. I think I'll allow Councillor Hasler a little bit of leniency here, but please get back to the main game.
Well, the point that I was making, Chairman, is the importance of having the CMCA option across the river because they don't have it on the northern side of the river, and that's exactly the point. The fact is, we put in a submission about that allowing camping on the northern side, and he's taken a view completely contrary to that.
Councillor Hasler, I think you've made your point, and I think we shall move on. We have a seconder for that.
Mr. Chairman, I haven't finished what I was saying, and I think
Councillor Hasler, I just urge you to stick with the main point rather than talking about the northern side.
I'm just going to that point as we now speak, Chairman. The importance of this development is such that it's been taking nearly 12 months to reach this position, and the CMCA are in a position that they have to have a decision sooner rather than later, or else they're unlikely to see. The message that they're saying to us is that in other areas of Australia, and I can give you a number of those centres now, they've been able to establish these similar grounds in a much quicker time, and the amount of time and the cost to their organisation to achieve an outcome may be that they'll move to another area. So what I'm saying to this council is, well, let's support it and let's try and get it activated as quickly as possible to address the problem we now have by not having an alternative across the river.
Thank you, Councillor Hasler. I have a councillor who wishes to make further comment or speak against the motion. I don't see anybody. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think council has said it all. Thank you.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
All right.
Against? Call the motion carried. Would someone get to Councillor Luke back in the chambers, please? And Ms. Markey, can you just have it recorded that Councillor Luke has returned to chambers? So that concludes the Director of Planning and Infrastructure's report, and I thank you, Mr. Johns, for your report. We move on now to the Director of Planning and Infrastructure Services, Mr. Bartlett, to outline the recommendations of his first item, which is item 4.1, Public Facilities Capital Rollover Project. Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement for the rollover of various capital works allocations to the 2021-22 financial year.
I have a mover for the motion, please. Thank you, Councillor Swain. And a seconder, please, Councillor Moses. Councillor Swain, you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I don't think so, Mr Chairman. Most of it looks pretty sensible. No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a councillor who wishes to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Moses, the second of the motion, do you wish to say something?
No, thank you, Mr Chair.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
No.
Against? I call the motion carried. Item 12.2, reallocation of funds, Gunnedah Memorial Pool. And I hand back to Councillor Bartlett, but Councillor to Mr Bartlett, but before I do that, Councillor Swain, I think you have a
I'll leave you, Mr Chairman.
and just might be please show that Councillor Swain is leaving chambers. Thank you, Mr Bartlett. If you'd like to outline your recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's approval to authorise reallocation of unspent funds from sporting grounds and parks and gardens to pool temporary labour.
A mover of the motion, please, from Councillor Luke. Thank you very much. And seconder of the motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I think everybody's asleep today. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Chair.
Do I have a councillor who wishes to ask a question or speak against the motion? Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? All the motion carried. Would you, someone get Councillor Swain back in chamber, please? And Ms Markey, will you please note Councillor Swain has re-entered chambers. Item 12.3, Water Services Capital Rollover Project. I hand back once again to Mr Bartlett to outline his recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide the Council with details of 3 water services capital projects identified in the op plan, which is not substantially commenced and require approval to be carried over to next financial year.
Thank you, Mr Bartlett. Do I have a mover of the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Luke. A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Mr Deputy Mayor, no, thank you.
Thank you for that. Do I have anybody who wishes to object to the motion or ask a question? Councillor Fuller, do you wish
No,
to speak?
thank you.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Item 12.4, proposed partial road closure, Camilleroy Road. I hand back to you, Mr Bartlett, to outline that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement to publicly exhibit a proposed road closure at the section of Camilleroy Road in Gunnedah.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. And seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Chair.
Do I have a councillor who wishes to ask a question or speak against the motion? Councillor Moses, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Chair.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
No.
Against? I call the motion carried. 12.5, Works Capital Rollover Projects, and I hand back once again to Mr Bartlett to outline his recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek council's endorsement to roll over various capital works allocations to next financial year.
Do I have a councillor who wishes to? Thank you, Councillor Swain. Second of the motion, please. Councillor Fuller. Councillor Swain, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr Chairman.
Do I have a councillor who wishes to ask a question or speak against the motion? Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion? No, that is a no. Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
No.
Against? Motion is carried. Item 12.6, Gunnedah Local Traffic Advisory Committee. And I return to you, Mr Bartlett, to... Oh, that's right. He has an interest in that one. So, Ms Markey, if you have noted that Mr Bartlett has left chambers. So, Mr Noble, I hand over to you to outline recommendations of item 12.6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise Council of the 5 formal recommendations to Council made by the Gunnedah Local Advisory Traffic Committee. I commend the report to councillors and welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. I have a councillor who wishes to thank you. Councillor Moses, a seconder, please. Councillor O'Keefe. Nice to hear from you today, sir.
Hang on, it's my second.
Councillor Moses, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a councillor Councillor Fuller, do you wish to make a comment?
Yeah, just one comment. Will there be another traffic committee before, AQUIP? Can anyone tell me?
I see a reference on Facebook to people who are going to AQUIP, and it says in brackets online when you go to AQUIP on Facebook. So whether they're having it online this year, I was really surprised. No idea about AQUIP online.
Mm.
Just on that question, Mr. Chair, from Councillor Fuller, I think there is one in early August.
Thank you for that, Councillor Moses. Councillor O'Keefe, as the seconder of the motion, do you wish to comment?
Only to thank the absent director for his interest in bringing an event to Gunnedah.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Keefe. Then I shall put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Swain, do you wish to?
Yes, I'm not voting against, Mr. Chairman. I guess I was just asking for a little bit, item 2, about the car parking spaces. Just a little bit more information about it and the problem that we're having with the trees down there.
Mr. Noble.
Mr. Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies, Councillor Swain. I'd have to take that question on now, so I'm not quite across the detail on that one.
Thank you.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Call the motion carried. Would someone like to call Mr. Bartlett back into chambers? It is noted that Mr. Bartlett has returned to chambers and he is ready to outline his report on item 12.7, Stock Road pavement upgrade. Thank you, Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. This report is to advise the council is fixing local roads grant application for $411,375 with a council co-contribution of $137,125. The pavement upgrade in Stock Road from Pearson Street to the cul-de-sac has been successful.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Councillor Luke is moving the motion. Do I have a seconder, please? And that is Councillor Fuller. Councillor Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just wondered from the officer, how he knew that on the 22nd of May 2021 that the application for the upgrade, which is paragraph 4 under commentary, because the 22nd of May hasn't come yet, so we might actually sort of, was there a different date there?
Thank you, Councillor Luke, for picking that up. And through you, yes, Deputy Mayor.
I've been waiting all day to say that.
It was the 22nd of April.
And that's all my commentary, thank you.
Thank you. I've now lost track. Who was the seconder of that motion? It was Councillor Fuller. Before I return to you, Councillor Fuller, is there anybody else who would like to ask a question or speak against the motion? Councillor Fuller, it's the seconder of the motion.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, yes, I call the motion carried. And thank you, Mr. Bartlett, for your report. And we move on now to item 13, which is report of committees, and there is nil. And item 14 is delegates report. 14.1 Waste 2021 conference, the 4th and 6th of May 2021. I was the author of that report, and I think you have it all in front of you. It was an extremely interesting, if not extremely intense report, a conference, one that was very, very well attended. Usually there's 600 odd delegates at that, but because of COVID, it was cut back to probably a little under half. But with a number of speakers, and where waste management is heading, I think that this council, along with all other councils, will need to take probably a deeper interest, certainly from a councillor point of view. I'm sure staff are all over it, but from a councillor point of view, I think we need to start to take a deeper interest in what's happening with our waste management facilities and the way we actually work towards recycling. So having said that, I would like to move my report. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Fuller. Is there a councillor who would like to ask a question or
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your detailed report. I was interested on page 116, you referred to Everyday Day, the principal analyst on my part, recommending no leaking on asbestos. That's an interesting one because asbestos is a very big issue and a costly item to deal with. What's the rationale behind that recommendation?
As I understand it, I think there's quite a lot of impost actually with older buildings and people wanting to actually do renovations. I think there appears to be quite a lot of remedial work done in older buildings that's going under the radar because people are worried about the cost implications was actually bundling that stuff and putting it into landfill. And they're hoping that by recommending a no fee to have it dumped will actually stop some of that and make it a much more open process so that there's more processing taking place. That's the understanding that I have. I'm probably not putting it particularly well, but that's my understanding. Councillor, Mr. Johns has got something to add to that.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I guess, yeah, just to back up the councillor's comment, I think the issue with it is that, as you rightly point out, there is a lot of cost associated with the handling of asbestos. So by its very nature, it's expensive to dig a hole and bury and put it in the ground. So by adding a levy, that's going to potentially increase the level of illegal dumping of asbestos because it's too heavy for some people. So I guess they're trying to keep the cost down as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward along with the working group discussing those last 6 points that you've raised. It should be fairly challenging for working group.
Councillor Luke, did I see you sort of heading towards the microphone? Do you wish to ask a question?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor, no, I wasn't getting there.
Then Councillor Fuller, do you wish to make a comment?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? I call the motion carried. So notice of motion, questions with notice. We have 2 questions with notice from Councillor Hasler, and I hand over to Mr. Bartlett to respond to those questions on notice. Items 15.1 and 15.2, and I believe that you're going to deal with those motions in one address. Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. Consultation on the management of street trees was undertaken during the development of the street tree strategy in 2015. The draft street tree strategy was publicly exhibited with written submissions accepted up until the 5th of February that year. No submissions were received. Council adopted the strategy at its meeting in February 2015. Staff have been working within this council adopted strategy and engaged a consultant to undertake a review of environmental factors as the trees were causing damage to road and curb infrastructure. It's scheduled to be renewed in the current year's delivery plan. The RAF found there was no feasible alternative but removal of these 2 gum trees. It noted both gum species were prone to branch drop and their size meant the danger of pedestrians and property should be taken into account, and that this danger would only increase in the future. As both trees span the highway, the risk to the public is significant. Under the council adopted strategy, trees causing significant damage to infrastructure or that pose a significant risk to the public to be removed and replaced with a more appropriate species within the available budget allocation as required, or when infrastructure renewal works are occurring in the area. The appropriate process under this strategy in instances such as these is notification of the determination to remove in line with the council adopted strategy, not consultation on whether to remove or not. Consultation has been occurring on the replacement tree species. 6 possible replacement species have been identified from the approved list in the strategy, giving consideration to the location and the site constraints. These species include the golden rain tree, evergreen ash, crepe myrtle, callistemon, Mount Morgan wattle, purple leaf prunus. Feedback is being sought until 5 p.m. Friday the 28th of May on which of these species is preferred by our community before a determination is made on which species to plant. A copy of the review of environmental factors will be circulated to councillors via email tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Barton.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that report. I have to say that I've had most contact from the community members in relation to this matter. I'm second only this year to the health issues in our community, and it disturbs me that we were willing to go ahead with that removal of historic trees of that nature without any consultation. And we have, from my observation, we've got a street named Tellerwood with trees which are 100 foot high or 33 metres plus down the track, and we allowed that as part of our policy.
Councillor Hasler, if I wish to interrupt here, we have a point of order here. The chairperson must not permit discussion on any reply to or refusal to reply to a question put to a councillor or councillor employee. I think that ends the debate. Thank you, Councillor.
Discussion now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, we now have item 15, notices, item 16, which is closed council. So I call on the councillor to move to go into closed council. Thank you, Councillor Moses. The second, please, Councillor Swain. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, gallery and the Untitled Times.